Hi everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
And unbelievably, this is week 14 of Sounding the Shallows, which means that it's 98 days since this series of recordings began, which I find absolutely extraordinary.
Well, it is extraordinary. And I think it is going on such a long time, this uncertainty, that it feels at least as long as that, really. We've had one or two emails this week, haven't we, that have been very moving, and one or two of them we'll come back to another time. But there was one that struck me. You know, last week we were talking about hope.
Yeah.
And it's somebody we know in Scotland who was talking about the fact that when she feels totally in despair and has lost just about all the hope she thinks she ever had, she says that if she's with somebody who is equally down, it's not that they become maudlin and just talk about how miserable everything is. It's that in encouraging the other person, she finds that the things she can stand on, the things she really does believe, filter through all the despair and give her a little bit of hope. And I recognise that in myself as well. It's not lying. It's not bigging something up. It's just saying, but this I know.
Well, some of it, I would imagine, is discovering what is actually in you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know one or two people I've met who've said their faith has gone. Actually, there are things in them that they haven't unearthed for a long time, excavated.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting comment, though.
Yeah.
We sometimes get a little weary of this nautical theme that we started a very long time ago.
Especially as we know nothing about boats.
We're absolutely useless. But the thing is that there is always something new. And someone said to us, what about the crow's nest? Right. Now, probably, like us, all you know about the crow's nest is that it was a kind of platform or box someone stood in right at the top of the mast. So we Googled it. Nowadays we don't have to go into the Encyclopedia Britannica, do we?
Or pretend we know.
And one or two interesting things. The Vikings apparently believed that a crow was actually put in a container up on the mast. And when they got into a mist and they lost their way and needed to get to land, the crow, if released, would head straight for land. So they would watch the crow and they would steer in the direction that the crow went. And there they would arrive at land eventually. But the fundamental role of the person in the crow's nest, as we all would all imagine, is to watch for three things, basically. For hazards, dangers that might damage the ship. For land, and also for other ships, because that might mean war or whatever. But those are the three things. So that's apparently what a crow's nest is.
Yeah, and apparently sometimes it's just that they feel it's a bit like a crow's nest because it's on the very top of a tall wooden thing. But I mean, I like the idea of the Vikings and all the rest of it. Yeah. And I know that sometimes it was used as a punishment. The reason being, apparently, not just for people who have a bad head for heights, but also because you feel terribly seasick when you're up there. And I gather it's because, you know, you haven't got your sea legs, they're left down on deck, you're up there, and it's because of the different sort of, you're at...
The mast is swaying at a different... I'm trying to pretend I know. The mast is swaying in a different way from the ship.
Yeah, from the roll of the... Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So that causes... Now, we know a bit about seasickness.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know people who have to cross the Irish Channel would say this, but certainly for us, crossing the Channel from New Haven to Dieppe, we do know about seasickness. And there have been times, we used to go across there quite often, didn't we, before we lived up north?
Yeah, there are some things that are really odd in their singularity, and one of them is that when you are seasick and you find a toilet, it becomes your brother or your sister. And I have ended up sitting hugging a toilet.
Yes. Now, of course, we don't hug, do we?
And loving it. I would have still hugged it, even if I thought it had whatever.
The thought of being at a social distance from the toilet is such a dreadful thought that I think
it is. But it's true. It's bad.
It's really bad. And you actually had a very similar experience to having seasickness, didn't you? Because I can't remember how long ago it was now, but it was quite a long time ago. But you had labyrinthitis, and that affects the middle ear, doesn't it?
Yeah, the middle ear. It affects your balance and causes nausea. And as it happened, and you had it as well, didn't you, for a while?
Yes, I did, but I didn't have to do what you had to do.
At that same time, I was scheduled to go to Keswick as a speaker. And at that time, I don't know quite how to put this, but Keswick was not, I would say, breaking out, seeking new freedom. I don't know.
Well, it
Maybe
might have
that's
been, but
unfair.
not perhaps in your direction.
Perhaps not in my direction. But I knew that I looked as if I was drunk because of this labyrinthitis. And being me, I thought, well, if they think I'm drunk, I'll tell them I'm drunk. So as far as I can remember, when I got up on stage, I said, I'm really sorry about tonight, but I am actually drunk. And there were expressions of concern from the expensive seats at the front and laughter at the back.
And those who hadn't left immediately were told that you had labyrinthitis.
Yes, I told them actually I had labyrinthitis. Yeah, I did.
But it's interesting you said about one of the things being hazards, watching out for hazards. And that is what you kind of think of with the lookout, don't you? I immediately see a long telescope and somebody sort of scanning the horizon for danger. And I was thinking about the prophets and the fact that, you know, what God did really was he chose people to climb up the crow's nest in a way, to focus on him and to point out, because he was telling them what they saw, the dangers ahead and the best way to stay safe. But they would be, and we're back to this thing of being out of kilter with the roll of the ship. I mean, Ezekiel is such a good example. Poor old Ezekiel. You know, at the beginning, when God first calls him, he actually tells him nobody's going to listen. He says, I don't want you to go to foreign nations because they would listen, but the people of Israel won't. All of them are stubborn and hard-headed. So I will make you as stubborn as they are. And he talks about how Ezekiel is going to be really tough. Well, then we have this extraordinary thing of the Spirit lifting him up and kind of swirling him around. And it says the Spirit took him away. And it actually says that he was both annoyed and angry. Right. And I thought that was great, because we tend to glamorize prophecy, don't we? And kind of think it's something we all really want. I mean, a lot of kids say they want to be prophetic and they want to be... But actually it was tough, wasn't it? It was very tough.
I think it's got a bit light, yes. I think it's got a bit misunderstood. And I mean, I remember Elisha, when Elijah is about to push off through his reward in his chariot. And Elisha says, can I have a double portion of what you have? And Elijah more or less says, well, you know, are you sure that's what you want? Because you're not playing games with this.
No.
It's for real. And if you are actually in possession of something that has to be said to a person or people, you've jolly well got to say it. And you cannot be held back, if you're right, and that's another question altogether, you cannot be held back by thinking people will disapprove of you or not want what you are saying. I mean, people in a ship hearing the man shout down, we're going to hit land in a minute, and they're saying, we're having a lovely time down here, we don't want to take any notice of that, and we're not going to. But you've got to make sure that they do hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Of course.
I think something about the horizon, isn't it?
Oh, well, I mean, that's the other role, isn't it? The lockout, lockout. Yes. It's on our minds. The lookout, again, let's give him his hugely long telescope. I mean, the other job is to look out for land, as you said, and to seek out new land. I mean, very, very often, people in ships had no idea exactly where they were going and what they were going to find. So, yes.
But it's still broadly a prophetic role, isn't it, that you're looking out to see what has to be said. I don't know whether this actually works out of context, but there's a poem by Kipling which is very striking. I mean, Kipling has his detractors, and rightly so for some things, but he wrote a poem called The Song of the Dead, and the lines I'm just going to read to you seem to me really suggestive of where we would want to be and perhaps where we ought to be. I'll read them to you. They're not easy to read, actually. I've been trying to get it right. We were dreamers, dreaming greatly in the man's stifled town. We yearned beyond the skyline, where the strange roads go down. Came the whisper, came the vision, came the power with the need, till the soul that is not men's soul was sent us to lead. As the deer breaks, as the steer breaks, from the herd where they graze, to the faith of little children, we went on our ways.
Adrian, that's extraordinary. Why do you like that so much? I mean, it is a very beautiful thing.
I think part of it is the notion of the strange roads that go down.
Yeah.
That when you look over out of the crow's nest, if we're going to continue to talk about that.
Oh, come on, we've got to.
You see a different horizon because you're higher.
Yeah.
And from that horizon, there will be ways that no one has ever dreamed of.
Yeah.
And we possibly in the church we've lost sight of that. I don't know, but I think it's something like that.
I'm sure that's so. I don't think any of us. I mean, we have been hit with it with the whole COVID thing of some very strange roads we're now going down. But it is true, isn't it, that we haven't had to think like that. We haven't looked out and thought, where are our new horizons? And we are told, I mean, Jesus tells us to live in the day, to not worry about the next day. But being on the lookout for something unfamiliar is perhaps a bit alien to us. Sometimes I think we really, really think we know what God is going to say and how he's going to say it and when he's going to say it and so on, really.
And it's a bit the same in marriage, isn't it? After 50 years together, we think we know what the other one is going to say, but we really, honestly, don't always. Here's a rather exaggerated version of that.
I've been thinking. I have made a decision.
Right.
I am going to stop work in September. Now, I know what you're going to say. How can we manage on one salary? Well, we've done it before. We can do it again. We're far too extravagant anyway. It'll do us good.
Well, I was thinking that...
Oh, no, it's no good trotting out your line about how will you cope without holidays and little treats. In fact, you saying that really infuriates me because you are virtually calling me a simple-minded bimbo, which, for your information, I certainly am not.
I never called you...
Oh, don't bother telling me I've got some secret reason for stopping work because I haven't. And quite frankly, I take exception to your view of me as the devious, self-seeking female.
I've had no intention
don't try
of
and
saying...
smooth me over. You can't call somebody a neurotic simpleton and then make it all right with a few glib phrases. I mean, no doubt you'll say you didn't mean it. Well, if you didn't mean it, you shouldn't have said it. I mean, how would you feel if you'd come to me with a carefully thought-through plan and had it steamroller because that's what you've done?
I am not.
Oh, don't insult my intelligence by denying it. I simply won't listen. I mean, you've had your say and now it's my turn. Or perhaps I don't get a turn. Well, I'm going to take it anyway. I've told you I want to stop work, but you don't seem to hear me, or rather you did hear me, but all you could do is go on and on and on in your usual way about holidays and treats and me not coping. Negative as ever. You don't agree, so that's that.
That is
You don't have to say any more because I get the message. Well, all right, then I won't stop work, but just you bear in mind that it was you who bullied me into carrying on.
Look,
it's absolutely useless trying to backtrack now because it's too late. Keep slaving away. Those are your orders to the resident servant. Well, okay, I will. But I loathe you sometimes, and one of these days, if I ever get the chance to get a word in edgeways, I'll tell you how much.
But I
don't want to hear any more from you. You may not have finished, but I have. I'm going out. Good night.
If only I'd kept my mouth shut.
I know that's silly, but it is true, isn't it? Sometimes when we pray, we tell God what we want, and then we tell him what we think he's saying to us, and then we just don't allow the possibility of something strange roads.
When I started thinking about this, and we all have always tried to go back, particularly to the New Testament, to see how things reflect things we're trying to talk about. And I thought about Jesus, and I thought about how he was continually gazing at a different horizon from the people around him. Obvious examples, Jairus' daughter. On the horizon you see a dead girl. Over the horizon, down a very strange road, Jesus sees a little girl sleeping who will wake up in a minute.
It's not just hope, is it? He sees.
No, it's seeing it. And Peter saying to Jesus, I'm never going to let you die. You know why I'm going to look after you. And Jesus thinking, you cannot see what I can see. You cannot see the horizon that is visible to me. And for him, I think throughout his time with the disciples, probably through his life, it was a very lonely place to be sometimes.
Well, absolutely, like we're going back to the crow's nest, really. Seeing a horizon separated from everybody and constantly open to new instructions from his Father. I mean, that is an amazing thing, really. This idea of a Father God who is watching from heaven, encouraging, but also sometimes challenging.
We've heard from so many people who feared the loss of their faith and of Jesus and God, and some very people who are surviving really well. But I go back. I always go back to this. I have so much to say about it. I'm being very boring about it. But Mary and Martha, the experience of many Christians is that you begin like the Bethany world, where clearly Jesus came and was very nice, and they ate together.
Well, we're told he loved them, aren't we?
He loved them, and there we are. We have a wonderful community. And then at the time when they really need him, he is nowhere to be seen. And I think if many Christians were honest, they would say that there have been times when they have wondered why the person who seemed to love them has gone. The horizon that demands, I don't know how to put it, adjustment to the more essential plan. Suddenly Jesus seems not to be there, even though you'd thought he loved you. Why? And that little verse, Jesus wept, pinpoints the pain of having to live the horizon life and also the life with people you love. Yeah, it's very difficult.
I've been thinking, Adrian. We've okay, so we've done the battening down the hatches to stay safe, and I know in some parts of the UK and I know elsewhere in the world, people are having to batten down the hatches in small different areas to stay safe, and then we're kind of creeping out to face an uncertain future.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but I think there's a yearning in us for familiarity and ordinariness.
Of course there is.
Of course there is. There is in me.
Yeah.
But the challenge, if we're using this crow's nest idea, is that we are asked to climb into the crow's nest, not made to, and it might make us feel a bit seasick, because it's unfamiliar and we're out of kilter maybe with our past or the things that are familiar or strong in our lives, to see the new horizon in the unfamiliar land.
We see that very clearly at the Last Supper, don't we? We had communion this week and talked about the fact that it begins with Jesus saying, I have eagerly desired, I have longed, is what he means, to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. And his sight tells him that death is coming. And these friends of his who don't even understand, he hopes and prays to his Father that they will remember the wine and the bread and never forget him. And that's that gap between the vision, the other horizon, and the place where people are is really difficult.
And beyond the horizon, that none of us will ever see this side, is heaven. This is a poem you wrote. I always sang a long time ago, but it's a favourite
yes, we
of
are
mine,
always
actually.
saying that.
No, I love
this is
this.
called Hills of Home. Some other country claims me now, but I will stay because we love this place, and I can always see the hills of home from top floor windows, but only if I climb the stairs. I'd rather see the hills than say my prayers at the bottom of the stairs. Some other country lacking this beloved citizen, whose straining eyes have never even seen the land where he belongs, except for distant hills from top-floor windows. When he climbs the stairs with others who might share unwillingness to mumble prayers at the bottom of the stairs. Some other country where the builder waits and faithfully prepares the mansions we shall need, all set among the hills, and all of them are made by hand, and all of them are home, and all of them are visited, and none of them need stairs.
So while we're mumbling our prayers at the bottom of the stairs, it is worth looking up, isn't it, and thinking maybe, just maybe, I need to climb higher to see further, to see the hazards, the dangers, to find out whether we have a job to do, and to see the new lands and the strange roads.
Good luck in the crow's nest.
Yes.
Don't get too sick.
No, please don't.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.